some of the images in that video just get me a little bit giddy. You did a great job, Joe. Welcome to
Thanks.
Friday post-election. This week has been a blur, probably because I had to stay up so late trying to watch that. The elections
Oh,
roll in. That was fun. We went live on an odd time, but we are definitely going to have to react a little bit more to it. It's percolated, right?
it did. I mean, so after we finished the live, which was absolutely an entertaining high point. It was not a high point. So just as we're ending the live, we did watch the numbers drop and get really close at a point where all of us were looking like, wait, we're about to end, and this looks like it's about to change. What are we doing? Let's get okay. It's starting to step. Okay, all right. Now we can end.
Yeah, it's like
I yeah.
leaving before the ball game's over. It's
Leave
bad
before the
luck.
ball game's over, especially when suddenly, one big event, like one big point gets scored that just changes the entire game. It's always a frustrating thing. I did end up watching much further into the evening, but obviously it wasn't quite complete. But I watched till it got to an impressively high number, and it was still and I cannot recall in my lifetime where we never got sort of the election result that night. We did get the election result that the Liberal government was going to win, and that got projected decently early enough. But it wasn't until the next day until we got the final answer of if this was going to be a minority or majority, and the CBC didn't call it till there was no choice that it was going to have to be a minority. Like it wasn't even projected. It was all right. There's now only two seats left to be deciding, and they have 169, so they can't do a majority now. That was exactly the line. Like I haven't seen that in my lifetime. That like something
No.
taking so long.
But I mean, well, there was what provincial was it election that we just had not that long ago where they had to
Ontario?
wait like a few days. No, well,
Oh
no.
no no
We knew our
BC.
fate pretty soon. Yeah, BC it was what days? What do you mean? Like, how do they
Yeah.
cope with that? But we've also seen what happens when media calls it too early. There's been a lot of embarrassments on that front too. So, um,
Oh yeah.
because they did declare a liberal government really early. Even then, we saw the numbers go within two seats at one point near the end, and it was
Yeah.
like, what? No. So, emotional roller coaster for anyone involved for sure, except folks in like ridings like mine, where over 11,000 votes separated the cons from their nearest opponent. But dang, the
Oh, yeah.
NDP got decimated. I'm so sorry that I'm saying that with a smile on my face because I know that's really upsetting to some people who might be watching, but you haven't really been watching then because this demise of the NDP was predicted by members long ago. I am in an I told you so era at the moment. So, but I am by far the first. I mean, like, so many people have kind of gone through that party telling them like that is not the path to success, and every election they kind of are proven right, and to the point where they don't even have official party status anymore. I was trying to think of the seven. I could have looked it up, but I didn't care that much. I was like, it's
Well,
like naming the seven dwarfs. Okay, wait. I got to see if I can
I
do it then. Okay,
I know.
Jenny Kwan, Don Davies, Heather
Yeah.
McPherson, Leah
Yes.
Gazan, uh, Lori. I always forget her last name from Nunavut.
Mm-hmm.
Idolut. Maybe I just. Oh
Believe
no, I
I
had more
believe
than that earlier. Who am I missing? Oh, Alexander Boularice. He's like the
yeah.
stalwart that I just always forget about. Uh, who am I missing?
Uh, Gan or Gas, I believe. She's out in I believe Alberta or Manitoba.
I said
Yeah.
no. I said Leah Gazan.
Oh, Leah
Uh,
Gazan. Sorry. Yes, Leah Gazan.
that's
I
their
think
Manitoba. Who's their Alberta? Oh, I said Heather McPherson. Anyway, maybe
yeah.
someone in the comments knows. Maybe nobody cares. But yeah, they have been. They're asking for party status. Carney's comment. Like, I'm not really gonna offer them anything.
Yeah, he didn't. He said he was. Yeah, So yeah, for those who didn't watch it, Cardi did have a press conference just before the show, and he was asked point blank, are you guys going to be seeking a relationship with the NDP? As in trying to make another conference agreement or something similar. And without even taking a breath, just no, like flat out no. But then he explained a little bit after, but just that missing me, just no, not even on the table. And it was wow.
No. Yeah, it's it he's rolling out the dental care. That was like one thing he's mentioned, and some people I think have commented like, oh, that's an olive branch. And this was always part of the plan for the dental care. It was supposed
Mhm.
to be a rollout. It's not like new legislation by any means. It's no olive branch. He owes them nothing. They need 3 votes, right? For any time they want to get shit done, they're gonna need 3 people to vote along with them. That can be from the 7 the NDP have, and what did the bloc end up with? 20 something,
Yep,
right?
they got
So
23.
it all depends, or the
Oh no
conservatives,
no no no
because
no no, not 3 votes, 4 votes.
why for?
Now, just as an update, also Terrebonne, one of the ridings in
Oh,
Quebec.
that's what you meant.
Yes, Terrebonne, one of the ridings in Quebec, initially won by 12 votes. That's a narrow as hell margin. 12 votes. Oh yeah
I'd hate to be on that
So
race.
automatic recount kicked in. When the recount was done, about a day or two later, and then we just got that declared, CBC posted, it was changed to Bloc Québécois, and they won it by 40 some odd seats. Now, there's still a judicial review needs to be done, so it's
Oh
another
God.
recount again. So that might change it again. Highly doubtful, but if it does, then it's going to be, to be honest, it's going to either go back to the Liberals or stay with the Bloc because they're both that close in votes. Regardless of that, is one seat that kind of changes. So now instead of 3 seats they need, it's 4 seats. It's still within the conversation's still the same. They're still going to need to go to the one of the 3 parties, NDP, Bloc, or the Conservatives to pass any legislation,
Yeah.
and it can be on a case by case basis.
No, and the thing is, what Carney wants, so do
Mhm.
the cons in reality, right? Especially the economic policies. The cons are going to be put in a really tough place with just voting against the Liberals on principle or doing what they've done for a long, long time is voting along with them. I don't know
Mhm.
why people don't pounce on that a lot more. The fact that they tried to say, yeah, the NDP props it up, and that's true. I'm the biggest critic there. But in reality, the cons often vote for all these policies that they criticize the Liberals for as well, or create their own very similar policies when they're in office. So when he comes up with the budget and whatever he decides that's going to be, he's talking about transformation, he's talking about cuts to curbing government spending and capping the public sector, all things people promised he would not do because we're in a recession. And uh, it's these are things the conservatives, can't be vocally against. I don't know what rationale they'd be pulling from. So I don't know who his opposition is
They'd
going to be.
they'd find something. They'd find some.
They always do.
Be honest here,
Let,
yeah, they'd find something.
let's go back to the election before we kind of dig in at what Carney's up to, because he's
Mhm.
already gotten busy while people are looking for Pierre. But I guess that's the most notable thing, right? That's the thing we all had the most fun with. Polyev
It is.
losing his seat in Carleton, and getting to be just really smug about it. And I don't like Carney at all, but I imagine he thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah,
Justin
there was.
Trudeau's probably sitting there having beers on election night, just thinking like there could be no possible better outcome,
Oh yeah,
except for
it's
Freeland also getting her seat. Sorry.
yeah. The most entertaining. It's there's a whole bunch of entertainment in regards to that. For one, um, the fact that it truly is an end of an era and the start of a new era because the leaders that are gone since the last parliament was Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh, and Pierre Poilievre. Like all 3 right now, gone.
And the Green Party co-leader also stepped down, except
Mhm.
he never made it into the House, right? He never had a seat. It's still just May,
Correct.
the May Party. Why did they just rebrand?
Yeah, exactly. They might get more seats too. Um, But to me, it's these were the three kind of like the big visual voices of the past
Yeah.
10 years, if you want to call it, um, or at least the past term in regards to what that government was, and for all that to change, and we've got you prime minister, we've got. We have no idea who the opposition is yet because they have yet
Or
to
where
name
he
the
is.
interim leader.
Rumor
Yeah.
is like Andrew. Oh, are you talking who? Well, I don't
For
think
the
anyone.
conservatives, for the conservatives.
Right. So Andrew Scheer is like rumored to be who will lead them in the House.
Oh, he's gonna be interim
But
leader. Good God.
well, Pierre has not resigned, so they just need somebody in the House to be the party leader.
I thought it might have
I
been
don't know what
Melissa
their
White.
title ends up being officially, but there's party whip, or
Yeah.
I think they do have a position where you're head of the caucus in the legislature, kind
Well,
of second to the
Melissa,
leader.
Melissa
Second, yeah.
Lansman's been the whip for Pierre for quite a while, so I'd be surprised if she wasn't being considered for at least interim leader. Now, there's
But he has
might
to step
also,
down before they can name an interim leader.
well, House leader in this case.
Yeah,
They
that's different.
they need one today, like not today, but they need one today for when the House starts
Do you
right
know they
away.
haven't sat since December? I mean, you probably know that, but when you
Yeah.
say it out loud, we're in May. May.
Oh yeah.
We're supposed to be in some sort of crazy crisis, both like economic and sovereign. And
Yeah.
they have not sat for 5 months.
Hmm.
That's
None of
uh
that's surprising though.
no. We keep drifting off. Like I don't want to live in the past, but it's worth the election also the losses for the NDP that folks are really hitting. Like some good people lost some seats. Matthew Green, Nikki Ashton, Blake Desjardins. Those were kind of favorites. Also, three Ontario MPPs who dropped everything and ran for the feds. They went from official opposition to out of a job.
Yeah.
They None of them won. Batula, Joel, and Monique.
Yeah.
So
Joel, I was
they
watching because he's in my city, obviously,
Yeah, I think it
and
surprised a lot of people because they had such great ground game. I thought Hardin especially had a lot of grassroots organizations working for him, and he got blown out of the water. Like it wasn't even close, and neither was
I
Matthew Green.
yeah, Ottawa.
That
When it
was rough.
comes to particularly like federal politics, when it comes to Ottawa, um, Ottawa overall generally is a liberal stronghold. Not even just specific ridings, just overall, it is a very much a strong liberal stronghold. It's been that way for decades, and particularly the element of this particular election being such a such a and it's a term I use quite a bit lately, which this particular election was very much fear based. Like
Yeah,
be careful, the Americans are coming, and vote right, and or else we're in big trouble. And if we vote wrong, then we let Pierre in, and the Americans take over. That kind of fear mongering, and it really made everybody turn into a whole two-party race, and it was so for a place like Ottawa. Again, should Joel Harden have won? Maybe. Should he have been able to give it a good run? Absolutely. Did he get the chance? Probably not, and probably due to exactly as the point, the entire fear mongering. We need ranked
it
ballot. Just saying, at least minimum.
electoral reform would be
Mhm.
great, especially for some of the smaller parties out there. Now, now that includes the NDP, but the other
Yeah.
kind of more revolutionary, the communists. We're going to drop an episode on Tuesday with a Barrie area communist. For anyone who knows Ontario, that is conservative country by far, and got almost 1,000 votes,
Mhm.
beat the Greens, and was like nipping at the heels of the NDP. So I think a lot of people don't go to those parties or even give them the time of day because our system doesn't really allow for them to get much space. But folks are inevitably not just talking about who will replace Polyev, but also Jagmeet. And I mean, I groan. I also wrote a piece that's going to drop soon because I just couldn't let it go. But Wob Canoe is being thrown out there a lot, but
My
that is
reaction to
not.
that is a no. That's a no. He's got too much stuff to do in his own
Yeah,
province.
to me, that's just like a red flag that you don't know how the party works at all. But
Yeah.
that's okay. Like, not many people are. You're not supposed to. They work very hard so that you don't. So my guess, it's going to be someone very boring and that most of Canada's hardly heard of, to be honest. But I don't really care. I think like that party's so beyond reform that folks should just look at this as a chance to just walk away, rebuild something else. It's like one of those builds that, it's not even safe to rebuild. It's, you might get hurt trying to. So, yeah, it can be a very sad moment to see those results come in, especially if that Carney's just a neoliberal banker that we will not, the working class will not fare well under, unions will not fare well under. And yeah, there's other paths for you there, because Carney, we can move on to Carney. I know you've got a lot of notes on him. We didn't up an hour
Yeah.
ago. Let me just before you get people up to speed, one of the first things he did kind of hits at some of the discussions that we've had here, and he has gone back to buying US. So I don't know if our elbows are still up or where we're at with that, but you remember how many times Ashley has reminded us that obviously Carney's ties to Wall Street, but his connections to the military industrial complex, the CIA, and all things national security in the United States. And so, like, we've got $100 million contract coming up for some fucking night vision binoculars. The amount of money we've spent, $100 million on night vision binoculars. Like, you don't even know the amount of military spending that is just wasted that could go to housing and shit. But either way, they're going to buy them, and they've cut off all EU bidders. It's basically the US or bust. So,
Yeah.
so much for us being dependent from them, and especially when it comes to military defense.
I mean, unless this contract was made before Trump was in power, in which case we're obligated to it. And even still, I'd still be asking, like, is there any way to get out of these ones? Why
No,
are
this
these
is one where
contracts
he's closed down the possibility of another bidder coming in. It's like all EU companies have been taken off, right? They're not even allowed to be
Right.
an option. So, that might leave a couple regions scattered, but not when you're talking about major weapons manufacturers or folks who actually make night vision goggles, right?
Yeah.
It essentially just leaves the US as a customer. So, like, that was just, I think I sent it to Ashley right away. It was like, tell me you're seeing this. I hope you feel validated.
Well, like I said, are we? Is it a contract for us to sell or to buy? That's the only one I thought it was. Are we
Buy.
buying? Okay, we are
We're
buying. Yeah.
buying them. Apparently, we need them. I mean, it's quite dark in the north. It's all about Arctic sovereignty is very important right now. We had all
Yeah.
three parties talking about it. Even Chuck
Yeah.
Me, he went out on talking about military spending and, only 100 more border crops as opposed to Carney's 1,000. But, yeah, so maybe they're going to use them. I'm not sure. It's not really transforming the economy there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we should have been looking at like pretty much all military equipment. If we have to purchase it, we should not be limited to the United States. If anything, the entire the entire big thing that we were all looking at was we're going to replace jets. That's going to happen. Fine. We started talking right away to Saab. Excuse me. We started talking to Saab because we were trying to get away from the Americans, because again, we're in a trade war. Why are we giving them more money when we're trying to become more insular, at least in regards to how we're dealing with stuff?
Well, we don't know where Carney's investments are even.
Mm.
I mean, like, for sure, he has got investments in the military complex. There's no way he does not, the U.S. military complex. So the fact that they're in a blind trust, like I feel like I sound like Ashley now, but this is coming to play where it's like he's going to make choices that are going to benefit only financial elites, and they might be friggin' subtle.
Yeah.
But he said a lot more in his press conference, right? But he is boring. I mean, before you go into the details, this is the first time we've had to hear him for this amount of time straight.
Well,
It was like a board
I
meeting.
also watch the debates too. So I mean, but you're right. This one
But he
is
gets like a
one
minute,
without
2 minutes,
interruption. Yeah,
and he's got to be
that's true.
peppy. He was delivering, a report, and it was so dry. I mean, I don't know what he's supposed to do, but it was really boring.
I think your summary of it was like the most boring board meeting there was ever, and he did speak like he is, he's a business
He's not
guy.
really talking to us anyway.
He's not talking to us. But it does feel and sound like he was delivering a business report. So, a couple of keynotes. One, the King is coming to Canada on May 27th. King
And the
Charles himself
Queen.
and the Queen. Uh, yes, but
Bleh. They're going to actually
Queen and
deliver the
Queen.
throne speech, which
They're going to be delivering the
normally
throne
is the
speech.
governor general.
That's true. This is the first time since, sorry, from an update I got, this is the first time the monarch has come to Canada to deliver throne speech. The last time was in 1977. So
Oh,
it's the first time in
God.
quite a while.
They're
So
just
it's about
feeding
10
into this
years.
man's ego so badly, right? Like the savior of Canada, and the king
There is,
comes to anoint him
there,
officially.
they're marketing this as the the show of solidarity with between the UK and and the king of can technically the king of Canada because of the title
Don't
of
say that.
I'll
That's
say, but
blasphemy on the
unfortunately,
show, Joe.
sorry, it's
That's
blasphemy.
blasphemy here on
It's
Rabble Rants.
fair, but technically the title is there for
Yeah.
Charles. Excuse me. So he is going to be coming here to Canada. He's going to deliver the throne speech. And again, it's supposed to be sort of a show between United Kingdom and support for the United Kingdom to all its Commonwealth nations, in regards to the issues of the U.S. and the world. So yeah,
Not that I care what the monarchy has to say, but if they wanted to show solidarity, it would have been nice if they asserted themselves when Trump started talking about annexing us, but they were real kind of crickets on that. Uh, but, it doesn't surprise me that Carney's going to, they've got to add some pomp somewhere because it's not going to come. It's not going to come from him. So, yeah, we'll get Charles to deliver the bad news, but Carney gave us some hints about what that will look like. A lot of it are, shockingly, his election promises, but that's usually what the throne speech is. They're not terribly beholden to anything they put in the throne speech, but they do need people to vote on it, right? It'll
true.
open up like 6 days of debates, and this will be the first test on where they are going to get those 4 votes. Typically, a throne speech isn't a breaker. No one wants to go back to the polls right away.
Yeah.
No one can afford it. Everyone is fucking tired, and it's like whatever. This is just fluff. This is just basically uh, maybe got AI to rework your platform and deliver it as a throne speech. So
And this
the first
election
test
was
will be the
exhausting.
budget.
Yeah, but this election was exhausting because holy
Yeah.
Christ. Again, it felt long near the end. And it was myself and I also observed quite a few other people just constantly commenting like, "I'm exhausted. I just want this to be over." Like they were just tired of it. And I get it. There was a lot of constant craziness that kept occurring, and like we saw the entire history in regards to like the NDP and the entire chaos that ensued there. Um, Pierre trying to pivot and just failing miserably. At least at the Conservative Party failing miserably to recognize that they weren't competing against Justin Trudeau. Um,
Yeah,
and
that was that good line during the debate, the
oh,
dad line.
it was, oh yeah, it was very much the deadline, but it was also very accurate in the sense of
Yeah.
he hasn't really changed his messaging, and it
No, it was that and the
shows.
carbon tax. He just started saying
Yep.
corporate carbon tax. He thought maybe that would be enough, and it was. It's like pivot, man. You folks
Yeah.
not pivot?
No, and they couldn't. And
The
to
NDP
me, I'm like,
pivoted plenty.
the end. Yeah, a little too much in some ways. But I mean, and to me, I think that was kind of the undermining for Pierre, because if you can't demonstrate you can't that you can pivot, then what's that going to mean when you're a leader, when you need to adapt to situations? You're not selling yourself well. But so I mean, now there's going to be the question of both, not just for Pierre, as we're discussing, who's going to be the house leader for them, who's going to be the house leader for the NDP,
You know
for
what?
that
I don't
Rabble
know.
crowd.
It doesn't really matter. They can all share a van, is one of the funny
True.
lines I heard from John Clark. They're not official party status, so their speaking time in there is not anywhere near the same. So they
True.
have to really revamp what they're going to do with 7 seats. And, just trying to be this vocal opposition in the House is not going to cut it. They're going to have to transform that whole party, turn it into an actual movement if they want. But in the end, I think this is kind of the beginning of the end for the federal NDP, for sure. But let's go back to Carney. Like, what is he up
Mhm.
to? So one of the things I know, Joe, you're really going to be upset about, and that we definitely need to talk about. I mean, we're not one to talk about
Yeah.
GST that much on here. He's keeping those promises. He's going to give developers more money in their pocket, housing. He talked a lot about his plans there. We'll see. But bail.
Yeah.
We're talking about like the criminalization of protests. We've got lots of comrades facing charges. We've talked that 80% of people that are in these overcrowded prisons, underfunded prisons, are awaiting trial, and most of them have been denied bail or are awaiting bail hearings. And the Prime Minister wants to make this even more difficult. He's promised a few other things that will also help criminalize dissent and the movements that we talk about on the show, and that's the bubble law, the protest zone law that a bunch of mayors are trying to get passed. He is going to just do it for the entire country. So you put these things together, and he's going to be able to lock up activists for a long time without any even prospect of prosecution.
Yeah. As one of the posts I'm reading here, CCLA points out that in our incarceration system right now in Ontario, 80% of people right now are denied bail. They are legally innocent right now and still incarcerated. I know at least one person personally that's currently in there. And yeah, we want to, the prisons are overcrowded. They're transferring around and trying to balance the numbers so they can have the most reasonable overcrowding in all the facilities. So they're constantly transferring the inmates around from facility as much as possible. Most of these facilities are understaffed, which means when they're understaffed and too much, the facilities are forced to keep the prisoners locked into their cells, not allowed to go in there, which now gets into the idea of, well, you're now having a human rights issue because you're supposed to be giving them, time to go out and exercise. In some of these facilities, it's even more horrifying in regards to, for example, places like Vanier. There is no direct view of the outside unless you go outside. So from within there, all windows are papered over and everything else. You are just seeing white walls the entire time.
There are windows, but they paper them over.
They do. They paper them over. So you can't. So most of the windows, if there are any windows on the side, it's going to be small. They're going to be papered over, and even the one that is above their heads, because there's some of the facilities they'll have windows at the ceiling. Those will be papered over also.
Yeah,
or
no,
frosted over.
and this isn't a problem. Like, this is him capitulating to the Conservatives.
Yep.
He was so adamant that he wouldn't throw a bone the NDP's way, but he sure has to work with the other elephant in the room, right?
Mhm.
And this is nothing even probably much of the Liberal base is asking for, making bail harder to get for folks. Like, that's not even really a talking point amongst right-wing pundits. A little bit. You
Yep.
get a kernel of it where, they'll use these awful examples of people out on bail recommitting, but it's the same way that Trump tries to use like one case of someone that doesn't have documentation in the United States committing a crime and just papers over the fact that immigrants usually have lower crime rates, historically lower crime rates, right? So like this is just 100% a conservative policy that doesn't even play to Carney's base. And when you do pair that with his promises to make it harder for people to protest and to criminalize that, like he's talking about changes to the criminal code, not just 100,000 K fine that the cities are promising, we're up to that big of a fine for people protesting outside their zones, but actual criminal charges. And if this is a reminder that how many charges have been dropped and how ridiculous some of these charges have been. So if you were denied bail for papering on a Starbucks window or throwing red paint on a sidewalk, they hauled somebody in, for spray painting or chalking the road outside of the U.S. Embassy. And for a year, like they faced charges on that just to be dropped, spending millions upon millions of holding these people, harassing them, prosecuting them, all on trumped up charges. And this, to me, that only makes sense from that perspective. So there's a few other things that Carney is hinting towards that people should be paying attention to as well, as like his promise to add more border security. How much and with whom? Because right now it's largely integrated with the U.S. So what happened there? He doesn't say much of his purpose behind it, but he's bringing it up in his very first press conference.
In regards to the bail, and he only spoke about saying making bail harder right now for those charged with stealing cars, home invasion, human trafficking, and smuggling. So he's trying to make it sound.
What? Yeah. Is that stealing what we're worried about right now?
Stealing cars has been this is funny enough. Stealing cars has been something that I keep hearing them talking about. Like the right wing has been freaking out. Like they're telling, the police are telling people to let them steal the cars, and I'm like, they are because.
Leave your keys at the front door, right?
Yeah, the whole leave the keys at the front door. I'm like, I kind of get that in regards to, is your car worth your life? No, then let them take the car. You've got insurance. You're good. And I think the police would rather deal with just the stolen car than, the stolen car and you being, murdered in the process. Because, I think I think we can at least agree on everybody should stay alive. But again, for some reason, everybody's got this idea that, this is a massive, massive thing in regards to the crime rate of car theft is out of control. And I haven't done enough much research in regards to it, but I'm like, is there a car theft issue? I think there always has been. Is it a massive thing that's going out of control? I don't know. But one of the other points I also heard in regards to this is, are the car manufacturers doing what they need to do to secure the vehicles? From my understanding, they're not. It's something.
But this is such a middle class, if there is one problem,
Absolutely.
When we're talking about and the language that Carney uses, how many times it was like a drinking game you could have made out transforming. He says that over and over again, and I love how right wingers will hear that and they'll know it's communism coming, right? They're like, we knew it, transform it into a socialist utopia. We told you so. And then there's folks like us sitting there going, no. I hear other words like cap the public sector and curb government spending that, and making changes to the capital gains tax. So these are my idea of what he's got for transformation. This is a Wall Street banker's idea of transforming. How they ever thought he was communist, I don't know, but I bet you they found more evidence in his press conference, right? Like you said, they always find something. Doesn't matter what you say, they'll always find something. Evidence that you're to the left of Lord knows what. But he's
the radical. Again, I've heard these guys saying this quite a bit. He's the radical leftist. He's going to turn Canada into a massive social, utopia or communist utopia. He's going to take away everything. You're going to own nothing and be happy. The whole rhetoric you keep hearing, and again, it's watch this guy for 5 minutes in regards to everything the policies. As you said, he's cutting everything in regards to the public sector, cutting down the efficiencies and everything else. He's just literally doing the entire capitalist talk, and you're like, no, he's not even close.
No. So yeah,
I think program.
Maybe not. They're on Fox, like they are watching a different slant altogether. They're watching Rebel News chase Carney down the street, and so they're getting a whole different commentary.
Just did that today.
Maybe if you know anybody like that, maybe share our feed with them because they need their news from a whole different source. But anything else from Carney's presser that you wanted to unpack? Because I'm looking to talk about Ford today, because the premiers have wasted no time trying to steal the spotlight. And I think, the presser and even the throne speech is still not going to be a real litmus test. So we'll hear some dog whistles, perhaps, but...
So one other point, I'm trying to see the list of points here. One of the other points I do recall that I thought was kind of entertaining is Carney's used a fair amount of hockey metaphors, and I'm thinking, like, we're going to be having a lot of hockey metaphors now, aren't we?
Well, we're in the season too, right?
It is. It's very much apropos for the season. I'm just kind of concerned, like, is it going to be a lot of those? In which case, people might start getting tired of hearing them, but we'll find out. But yeah, I think the rest of it was very much focused, which was, again, still kind of the driving force of the entire election, which is how is Carney going to be addressing Trump. Everybody's gonna be focused on that in regards to.
I like how he's like, I'd see you next Tuesday. Like, I'll see him next. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but just
yeah.
I mean, Rick Mercer also used to sign off like that when he did his rants, going down the alleyway. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he meant it, but he was just like on every Tuesday, and he'd be like, I'll see you next Tuesday. And I would just like snicker at the end of all of those. That's how immature I can be. But,
we all snickered.
Yeah, I've updated the banner there. That's our sign that we're moving on to Doug's. I should have made the banner more catchy, but I came up with Ford's Grudges with Judges. So the what's making the headline right now is Doug Ford went on this rant about bleeding heart judges overruling the government. I've got this CBC article, or I did. Yeah, you can see it right there. So he uses a lot of really inflammatory language when it comes to these judges. He has a history with judges. I mean, he has a few wins under his belt. I mean, they let him chop up the city of Toronto and get rid of half of their counselors, amongst other things. But I would say, I don't have the balance sheet, but he has a lot of L's in this department. This one isn't even that significant. I mean, environmentalists will not like me saying this, but we're talking about bike lanes. This is what it's got him upset about right now, but it's not really what's got his back up altogether. He is trying to get rid of all the bike lanes. Toronto is putting up a fight, so a judge granted an injunction saying, just sit on it. Let me see if it's unconstitutional. You can't rip them up right now. And he is just so excited to rip up these bike lanes. It's a priority for him. And so, yeah, I don't know if this was planned attack or he just like lost his shit at the wrong time, but it's all over the place. He's gotten a reaction from the circuit judges, the three chief judges of Ontario.
Well, I could show us the rants right now if you'd like. I've got the minute and a half rant ready.
Oh, do you? Of Ford going off? Well, that would be that would be helpful. I mean, sort of. You know what I mean. Let's hear Ford.
Absolutely. Oops.
But why don't we have the next election, the PC party, the Liberal Party, the NDP party, the Green Party, and the Judges Party, because they overturn everything, right down to the bike lanes. So, we get democratically elected, and some judge slaps an injunction on bike lanes. Don't the judges have anything better to do than worry about?
I'm going to slap an injunction on him.
Or not taking out bike lanes? One judge says, yeah, not a problem. The next judge, not because of law, because of their ideology. Their ideology is thinking, well, maybe we shouldn't take out the bike lanes. What right do they have, an unelected, politically appointed judges determining our budgets? Because of the decisions the judges have made in the past have cost us $10 billion. And we ran on a mandate. We got elected democratically. Last time I checked, there hasn't been any judges.
Yeah, it's their fault. He keeps getting challenged in court.
Let's start electing our judges.
Like judges bring the cases to themselves, right? Like, please.
Electoral judges.
Sorry, did I talk over top of the premier?
Because of the ideology, decides, well, let's put an injunction on bike lanes. You got to be kidding me. It's the system is broken. And I apologize to all the great judges, all the great JPs.
The ones he's gotten in his pocket already. That he goes with. Sorry, buddy. I had to throw you all under the bus there. But, oh my gosh. So, obviously the judges respond. They don't name him. They don't say, we condemn what Ford has to say. But they do give people a somewhat helpful history lesson or a political lesson. Can you pull up the judge's response there that I've got linked? I'll read it. I've got it in my notes, but it just serves as a reminder to folks like how the government in Canada in general are supposed to operate. The U.S., this is U.S. style politics too, right? And this isn't the first time he's got hearkened to the U.S. way of electing judges and suggesting that he would do it. I think I spoke over him saying this, but one of the things that Ford was going on about as well was he would pay them to retire. I will pay you 1, 2, 3, 4 years to retire, to get out of here. So like that doesn't have real Trump kind of tone to it. I don't know what does, but one of the key paragraphs in that statement that Joe was pulling up there is, I'll read it just. Our constitutional democracy is comprised of 3 branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And all 3 branches of government must exercise their power and authority in accordance with the Constitution. While it is the legislature that enacts legislation, it is the role of a judicial official to interpret and apply the law. To fulfill this role, here's the key point that Ford should probably underline, is that the judiciary must be distinct from and operate independently of all other justice system participants, including the other 2 branches of government. He wants influence there, right? And he has talked about appointing judges himself, right? Like he complains about them not being elected, but he's made changes to make it easier for governments to have a say in what kind of judges can be where. So, and he's been attacking them for years because he's been losing court cases. He talks about how much money it's costed him, or the government. It's because they challenge the shit out of it, right? When they lose, they don't even lose. They always appeal. They take it as far as they can, and they end up having to pay for it. And then they have to pay restitution, like the way they had to do with Bill 124. Had 3 years of back pay to pay all those nurses and other public sector workers after the court ruled that his use of a salary cap there was unconstitutional. So I've got a list. Let me run through them just quick.
Oh, yeah.
And this is not exhaustive by any means. I had to eventually just start filtering them out. The CBC article that I have linked there has a list of 15 on its own, and then that's dated in 2021. So back in 2019, the most significant ones early on were the cap and trade. Right. He also lost carbon pricing. Right. So a lot of his economic ideas there were shot down by the court as far as it could go. He tried to hide his cabinet mandate letters, the mandate letters that go out to each department telling them what their goals are. He's hidden that this whole time. We eventually did get them. Colin DeMillo, I think, has them pinned, or did have them pinned to his page. Eventually he lost that as well. In 2021, there was 2 big cases where he failed to consult with Indigenous peoples on mining projects. This is not unique. He's got a few court cases pending on that as well. It's common for them not to consult properly, but that is one of the rights that there is, that people can take them to court over. The Ontario Division Court has got him many, many times. I mean, he had an election finance law that they rejected, and then that ended up going to the Supreme Court just in March. So in March, he just lost a case about the campaign finance law he tried to pass. Then in April, the Supreme Court of Appeal, or the Supreme Court ruled that these youth climate activists that I'm going to talk about later, that their appeal could go forward, right? So when I mean they try to shut this down at every possible avenue, it's real that they spend incredible amounts on legal processes to drag these out as long as possible, to cost their opponents money, and then they're spending our tax dollars. But it's okay because it's law firms that are friendly to them. And then they lose the bike lane thing. So he's had a really rough spring with judges, and I think he just lost it. That was that, because that's a poor move for a politician. I mean, that's real Fash Alert stuff for folks.
It is. I mean, like, that his rant there and how he's straight. First of all, I'm like, Ontario, are you not embarrassed that this is the person you fucking reelected? Right off the bat, he's not even understanding the entire judicial system. He's not understanding his goddamn job. And you were very happy to reelect this dumbass.
Do you think he doesn't understand, or he's really playing kind of Trump? Well, Trump doesn't have full ownership over this style of politics. Rob Ford and Doug Ford have behaved like this from the very beginning. So really brash, unconventional, kind of fuck the system while they work it. You know what I mean? They always use any kind of, because we can relate to those, right? There's people out there that probably do think that judges have it in for folks, and they play into like little tiny kernels of truths, perhaps, but then point people in the wrong direction, and they're just so fucking good at doing that.
Yeah, Ford definitely, I'd say he's trying to just to garner and work the system. I'm not sure if it's an act or not. Trump, on the other hand, I'm not sure he's all there. I point to the recent MS-13 interview where he was shown the photo of the tattoos with the Photoshop of MS-13 on there, and Trump couldn't believe that those are Photoshop. He's like, no, the photo's real, and everybody's like, no, it's Photoshop. We all know this. It's very clear. I mean, it's like MS Paint.
No, but then again, I have the same question. Do you think he even saw the photograph, or is he just regurgitating what the staff have told him? Like, how much time does he have to sit and get eyes on half of this shit? Someone probably just told...
I think he saw the photograph. He
For real?
Communicates... Yeah, he doesn't communicate words. He doesn't communicate with written documents. He communicates with pictures. So I'm pretty sure he saw this picture, because, again, it's a picture. And he's like, oh, look, there's the tattoo with MS-13 written on it. Somebody could have used a wax crayon, and he still was like, yeah, that's it.
I don't know why I was trying to give Ford or Trump the benefit of the doubt there. I just thought, I've seen the picture, and I just thought, no, there's no way. There's just no way.
No way you and I would ever believe it, or anybody else that's reasonable with any sense of discerning eye. But
I don't think that's what it is. I don't think he's looking at that, believing that. I think he is playing that card because we've seen him do it. All our politicians are doing it right now. Doesn't matter how outrageous the lie is, if they just keep saying it. If they just keep saying it over and over and over again, it just sticks. People, even the interviewer, kind of got tired of trying to refute it. He just wanted to move on. He was almost even going to let it stand, because his mumbled retort probably wouldn't have made the final cut anyway. He's like, oh, well, it's actually Photoshop. Let's move on. Right. So it was just like, he was just going to let that kind of comment sit.
He wouldn't.
And
he wouldn't.
No, he was so, that's that smugness that he has, that entitlement that he has and other politicians have with the media, where how dare you challenge me at this point? Like, that's not what their profession is supposed to be doing. They've come so used to, just having parrots work for them and using the strings that they have to pull to make sure, only friendly media gets these kinds of interviews. And so when he sits down with what seems like a foe, I think he thinks he's been screwed. You know what I mean? Like, I would never agree to sit down with someone who'd ask me those kinds of questions. And Yeah, they don't have good answers for them, so they end up looking like that.
Absolutely, the entire interview with Tara Moran is just a gold mine of just bizarre takes and understanding. But still going back to Doug Ford. He is trying to do that similar kind of bullying. He's not quite the same level, but again, it's a huge comparison between the two. But again, he's trying to do the bullying in regards to that. He's trying to shove these mandates, which are questionable in their constitutionality. I mean, in the same article we're talking about CBC about him being upset by the judges, he's also talking about bail reform, about trying to see automatic bail refusal for people who commit again violent crimes, repeat offenders of violent crimes. We're still talking about removing constitutional rights of people who have yet to have their charges listened to, and this is very problematic. We have it for that. We're listening to Carney was discussing that. This shouldn't be there, but somehow this seems to be striking a chord with a lot of people. Like, yeah, we should be locking them up. That's not what this means. You're trying to lock up people who are legally innocent right now. And once you permit this, there's worse stuff you're going to be giving the ability for them to permit.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and then we get exhausted pushing back on everything, right? So some of this stuff will just slide because I'm not a criminal. I don't have anything to worry about. It's like they're pulling people in for mischief or standing in the middle of the street, So
in the
everyone
States
should
right
have a
now,
problem with
people
this.
who are not a criminal are being deported out of their country. So what makes you think you're innocent or safe?
Yeah. So
I haven't tracked this as much, but Danielle Smith.
for those listening, because I will repurpose this at some point. We're chuckling at Danielle Smith's having separation anxiety is the headline up. This isn't the first time, obviously, Wexit or the idea of Alberta sovereignty has come up. And one day after the election, though, she made it more than rhetoric. They introduced a piece of legislation in the Alberta legislature, obviously, and what are they calling it? Bill 54. And she's looking to just make it easier for folks to have a referendum. And the referendum she is looking for is on separation. It gives people, a longer time to gather signatures, and it lowers the threshold of folks that you need to submit a request for a referendum. And it's tied to the amount of people that show up for each election. So, that number gets smaller and smaller the fewer of us that show up, because then it's like a percentage of that. So anyway, rather than bring forth the referendum herself, she's hoping that a group of concerned citizens will do this for her, and she will just be acting on the will of the people. But not everybody's happy about it. I mean, there is going to be a rally at the Alberta legislature on Saturday, if anybody's interested in going. It's called the Alberta Independence Rally. Should be fun. And I want to know the crowd size. I need to, if we're talking about measuring crowd sizes, I am curious how many people this is going to resonate with. I'll tell you who it's not resonating with. Indigenous peoples.
Oh, yes.
I didn't find the link, but I saw it. Some Indigenous nations, thank you, have issued a cease and desist.
I can't find all the letters, but I found at least this one here. Last night, actually, coincidentally enough, I did go through and I found a couple of them. But the particular ones that I recall was Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation was the first one. I believe there's also another letter from excuse me, from the I want to say Black Bear Nation, and again, all the letters are pretty much saying the same thing, going, "Stop it, just stop it. This is ridiculous.
This is treaty territory, bitch."
And this is exactly it. This is treaty territory. You can scream for all you want, in regards to separation, but it's not going to happen because you need to negotiate not only with Canada, but also with the Indigenous nations that this land is on. And we can tell you right now, it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go. If you don't want to be part of Canada, by all means, you can leave. Is literally the summation. Yeah, the very
No,
last line is,
I don't like
hang
that
on.
line because, like, if
Uh,
we don't like it, we change it, right? We don't like it, we change
But
it. We don't tell people to leave.
but I'm just quoting their
Yeah,
final statement, which
I
was,
know.
if you are any Canadians are not happy living on treaty lands, they are free to apply for citizenship elsewhere.
Yeah.
They're far more polite than how they said it, but it's like, you don't like it, leave. And I'm,
It's like she's
well,
offering the province up to Trump,
yeah,
she is so desperate to seek favor with those southern-based conservatives.
it, yeah, and
She's
it's
it looks like she's willing to risk everything. Like then she's just like, go ahead. Why don't you call the referendum yourself and tie your career to it? You ask the people of Alberta right now what they think if they really want to be, because that is really, it's not just separation. To me, it's all part and parcel with handing yourself over to the United States, and
oh yeah.
you see, and they don't like it. Can you leave with them? You know,
So
just
this is the only thing I don't know, and I'd be very curious to find out is, what is the level of interest in Alberta in regards to separation? Like, is there, like, obviously politically there is, into the smaller groups there is, but what about the general population of Alberta? Do they actually have an interest in there? And I don't have the stats on that, and I'd love to know.
I mean, if you laid it out for them, though, like what it would mean for their economy, what it would mean for a lot of logistical things, I think perhaps an informed Albertan would not. But in this era of like heightened, misplaced anger, and a fourth liberal term is about to make these cons' heads explode, right? Like that's why it came a day after she was capitalizing on like the feeds out there. My husband is on a whole different algorithm. I mean, it was so hard to go through his phone when he was just coming across like conservatives crying, just like distraught over the election outcome. And so yeah,
Yep.
she's just like, I've got the answer for you. It's just a stick, but no doubt someone will try to meet at least that criteria. They have 120 days to get, X amount of thousand of people to request a referendum to see if it actually plays out. But yeah, Smith's not brave enough to kind of tie her name to it just yet. Uh,
She's
we'll see.
probably hoping it's to be like something like Tamara Lich or any of the other larger Wexit movement people will try to do that. I'm not going to be, so if she throws out to the idea for somebody else to be able to call for the referendum in Alberta, absolutely, it'll happen. There are enough people. Again, 1 in 4 people, Albertans, would vote to separate, to separate, which
That's not enough.
means that's definitely not enough. But to me, it is enough to find enough people to try to do the separation thing, or sorry, bring in the referendum.
And
So
what a distraction, right? Like rather than
it would be.
doing what people need, they're sitting there clawing back,
Yep.
$200 from disabled folks in Alberta and telling people that the federal government is like the only problem that they've got to solve. It's just, and then you'll get people caught up in it, right? So then do you mount
I've
a
seen
counter campaign to stay, right? Remember that? Remember when Quebec and the amount of
I've
money and
seen
resources that went into all
both
of that?
Quebec ones. I saw
Yeah,
both Quebec ones firsthand. I
I'm
saw
old
it
enough
back
to.
in 1980. Yeah, I saw it back in 1980 when I was in Quebec and seeing it there. It
Yeah.
was very heated, very tense issue. And even in '95, it was still a tense issue too. And the '95 one was a very nerve-wracking one. If you ever watch those numbers, I kind of, I kind of shit myself when I first turned on the TV, going, "All right, let's see how this referendum thing is going." Thinking this is going to be going good. Turn it on. Like, what do you mean? Yes, it's got more votes right now. This is not what we're supposed to be seeing, like at all. And it took. And again, that was another one where it took late into the night. It was also the highest turnout on anything in Canada for election, by the way. It was like 90% or over 90% turnout. Yeah, it was incredible. At least on a political sort of, in regards to getting people to a ballot. But then again, it was a charged question.
That's kind of
But
like the election numbers this year.
yeah,
Carney was bragging about that. It's like the highest
turnout
turnout in
was
30 years. Like, are people getting more? I wonder if that's part of a trend or it's just Carney fever.
well. The fact that the fact that there was a larger turnout is actually fantastic news. I mean, I'm hoping it's a trend that holds because let's be honest here. The fact that we have a lot of people going to the polls, great. We should have people always going to the polls because this is if our democracy is going to work, we need to be there. It shouldn't be only when there's a heated issue because
It's like playing the lottery, only when it's $40 million.
yeah, exactly. You can do
Yeah,
that with the
it's got to be
lottery.
big enough. Don't wait until
Usually,
shit's hit the
yeah,
fan.
exactly. If not, you start getting the crazy shit in there. Yeah, be involved.
All right, let's transition to the more disruptive half of the show. The headlines are usually the problems, and our disruptive updates are typically the solutions. Because you know,
Actually,
the
before we get to disruptive updates, there was one other
what did I
story
miss?
I forgot to put in. This had to do with the involuntary addiction treatment being done in
Oh,
Ontario.
okay. Yes,
Yes, yes,
please.
yes,
Yes, I have a disruptive update sort of related to that, so that's fitting. That is
yes.
fitting.
So this one here, this came across. I came onto this yesterday. Um, Ontario is now going to be examining involuntary addiction treatment for people in jail, on parole, or on probation. So this is just forced treatment in regards to addiction. Now, do I believe people should have treatment if and when they're ready? Yes. Should it be forced onto them? No. There's a multitude of reasons in regards to that, and talking to many people who are in the field, experts in the field, will all say the same thing. Forcing somebody into treatment is never a solution. It'll do damage on many levels. It'll damage them not only because they'll become more resistant to treatment, as they'll have experienced it against their will, there'll be a sour taste to it. The second thing, it also increases their risk as somebody who's, let's say, in treatment for heroin or any of the other hard drugs that they're using. They will make their body get cleaned, depending how much time they're out of it, and then when they get back out, you haven't addressed the issues as to why they're addicted. And it usually has to do with economic, habit, or all these other issues that they were not willing to work through because they're not the ones that came to it. They will go back to their addictions thinking they're still as capable as they were before to handle the amount, and they'll end up overdosing. This ends up generally doing more harm than any good.
Especially when you consider how many safe consumption sites have been closed.
Correct. And so now all the work has been done to try to help people and improve the situation. We've closed down the safe consumption sites that actually helped and saved lives. We've all the people who were like complaining like, oh well, we have all these people taking drugs now in our neighborhoods. Like, I got some bad news for you. They're still going to be taking drugs in your neighborhood, but unfortunately now they're going to be doing the parks and the streets and everywhere else that you don't want them to do it, and they're going to be leaving their needles and everything else there.
Or
Why?
worse, like home alone and they'll die.
Exactly. So by removing the idea of removing these places is going to stop the problem. No, it just moves it somewhere
No.
else, somewhere you have no control over, somewhere it's no
Yeah.
longer safe.
And
And then
to
you're
be
going to
at
be
risk
forced
of
to
sounding
continue.
like a broken record, this all plays into eventually like filling the prisons to the point where they need to start privatizing them even further.
Yep,
Right? So, for the most part, they are already built and operated through like P3s, right? It's a transition towards the privatization already, right? But
absolutely. And the
the,
amount of prisons they're going to need is far more than what they have right now. They already need far more than what they have right now because they keep incarcerating people that shouldn't be there.
Do you want to roll we're just going to transition right into the disruptive
Absolutely.
updates, but lead with the Toronto Indigenous harm statement there. I thought this was interesting because we talk about duty to consult as a tool for environmentalists. But, with the closing of the safe consumption sites and things like Bill 5 or 6, I'm sorry, I'm getting them switched up because there's two really bad ones right now, and the Safer Municipalities Act, that it further criminalizes drug use and being homeless. So one thing that, again, our province is guilty of doing is not taking Indigenous people into consideration. Do you have that video?
It's ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah, play that for me, please, Joe. This is
Did
Ms.
you know
Wasson.
that consent and consultation within Indigenous communities doesn't just apply to environmental issues, it also applies to our health and wellness?
Did you know that recent legislation, specifically the Community Care and Recovery Act, was passed in Ontario with zero Indigenous consultation?
Despite the fact that Indigenous people are overrepresented in the lives claimed by the toxic drug supply and are dying at a rate 7 times faster than the rest of the population.
TIER worked with Indigenous lawyers to file an affidavit, putting those facts on record. Otherwise, there would have been no mention of Indigenous communities in the Charter Challenge to keep safe consumption sites open in Ontario. This is all despite the fact that Indigenous people are one of the communities that will be most devastated by the legislation put forward by the Conservative government.
Upholding our sovereignty
Thank you,
isn't
Jill.
just about protecting our land and waters, it's also about having autonomy over our own bodies and self-determination in decisions around our livelihood.
So, yeah, I thought that was an interesting take just for another angle of how advocates, they tried the courts, they managed to score an injunction, but there was dirty politics at play even after that. And so, not that this is new to them, but this is another kind of tactic they've deployed to try to attack the validity of some of these cuts that are going to harm poor drug users and disproportionately Indigenous drug users. So, that is a friend of the show. That was Musquasin. And if folks aren't already following the Toronto Harm Reduction Coalition, you should. They are relentless and informative. So if you're kind of new to harm reduction as a practice or as even an idea, they would be a good place to start. But there is a harm reduction coalition in your area as well, I promise you. There's a Canada-wide network, but there's so many local groups and street teams that if this is something that you want to work towards, you can definitely get involved with. Our second episode ever was just with like a handful of people out in Alberta that started a street team getting safe drug supply, not the drugs themselves, but the harm reduction tools that you need, as well as, water and feminine hygiene products or, menstruation products and whatnot. So it's, there's so much work being done by those folks right now. It's awful that they have to go into this crisis mode to protect the safe injection sites and the other things that they worked to already get, right? It's like, whenever we make these gains, all you need is a really heartless conservative government, sometimes liberal or even NDP, to roll it back on you. And so, yeah, they're back to work doing whatever they can to secure those sites and change the way people see harm reduction, because it's being criminalized, and that will lead to just such disaster for folks that we care about. Yeah. I promised an update too, a more in-depth update on one of these court cases that Doug Ford lost. It's an Indigenous group. I told you at the top when we were talking about his grudges with judges. I think this is it here. Yeah. This has been like 2019 in the making. So one of the claimants here, there's 7 youth from Ontario. they were as young as 12 when this started, which is just incredible to me. I don't remember what I was doing when I was 12, but it was nothing like this. And with the help of some lawyers, obviously, they launched a legal challenge against the Ontario government for failing to set adequate emissions targets. So it wasn't just like they were criticized for not doing enough. They had planned to not do enough. It was in writing that they would definitely not even try to do what is scientifically needed to curb the effects of climate change. So these youth are using their charter rights. Now, remember, we heard Pierre promise he would do anything to protect folks' charter right of security and life. And so those are the very rights that they are using to say Ford is going to eventually deprive them of by making these choices regarding climate. So can we constitutionally protect our climate or force politicians to make policies constitutionally, force them to save the environment, to enact policies of climate justice that, are led by scientific. That's what the youth is asking the court, to force them to use the science and not just throw a number out there that they know is not good enough. They're also arguing that they're being discriminated against as youth. And this isn't the first time that we've talked about Indigenous or environmental activists using the fact that there's no consultation for youth who will end up bearing the brunt of all the impacts, right, of these policies, particularly environmental ones. So they're going through the court system. They did get a victory, although it's not done. So their appeal was trying to be stopped by the Ford government. It can now go ahead. So they are still going through it. It's a long, obviously, 2019 and expensive way to challenge the government. But, I listed a lot of court cases earlier. It is becoming more common for people to do that. Canadians used to be seen as not litigious, right? Like we don't generally sue people to get what we want. It was just it was one of our points of pride that distinguished us from the US, where people use ridiculous lawsuits like the McDonald's hot coffee incident, which actually did injure someone. But those kinds of examples to be like, oh, they just sue their way out of it. But we're starting to see that sometimes like that, other than, direct action or massive disruption, it is a way that a small amount of people with enough resources can force government's hands to an extent, right? There has been some moderate success there. So there was one highlight from this week's Disruptive Updates where, they were successful in kind of pushing back, and, they couldn't argue with the court why the court shouldn't hear it. It was kind of a tough argument. I don't think this should go to appeal because it's a waste of resources.
I'm not going to be surprised if we're going to be seeing a lot more lawsuits and challenges as it's happening. Because again, we're seeing a lot more laws where they're trying to suppress, as we were discussing earlier in regards to the bubble zones and everything else. We're going to be seeing a lot more court stuff activity for sure. We have to.
Yeah.
So we're going to fight these.
No, and the good thing is there is a lot of movement lawyers that are getting better at doing this, but it's still part of the colonial institution. You'll still be up against a wall, but it's certainly not thwarting efforts. So I applaud, to think that youth are spearheading this largely is promising in itself, right? So one thing that is not good news that I'd like to share, Joe, I shared a video with you on Instagram, and I know you hate sharing from Instagram, but I'm going to talk about the flotilla. This is kind of a red alert. There was, I shared a thread with you that had some phone numbers that people could call. So
I'll take a look at the thread, but I actually have a video about the actual flotilla attack, and this is from at the time.
Okay,
let's roll this, and then...
Guys, this is an emergency. We need everyone to contact the Malta government right now. At 12:30 a.m., our ship, the Freedom Flotilla, was attacked by 2 drones. Explosions. You can go see the video footage on our Instagram page. Please, everybody, put pressure on the Malta government to save the crew. There's about 30 souls that had to abandon ship. The ship is on fire. It's taking water. Please, everybody, all hands on deck.
We are talking that we are here right now in Malta. We've been here for several days preparing this freedom flotilla to break the siege towards Gaza. So we are talking about an attack with drones in international waters in Europe. We are not saying that we are surprised by the enemy, but we need your voices more than ever. We need you to help us. We need you to contact the Maltese government and your authorities or any country, anything you can do. Just please raise your voices because we need to save our crew. We need to make this public as soon as possible. And go watch everything we're going to post on our social media and on Freedom Flotilla social media.
So the Freedom Flotilla is not new concept either, and this is not the first time the Israeli army has attacked it or has other states help thwart the efforts. They launched from Malta this time. They have launched from Greece before, I believe. Maybe there's some other examples I'm not thinking of, but they are attempting to, when they say break the siege, they're avoiding the traditional controls on land and trying to land a ship full of supplies into Gaza. I'm not sure which part of Gaza they were aiming for, but again, this has been tried over and over again. I am not sure. Surely they know they'll never make it through, right? Like I would love someone to explain kind of the tactics behind here, because I can only speculate that they generally just want this reaction. This isn't to say you shouldn't call the Maltese government or pressure politicians to, not attack a humanitarian aid ship, but we are in a conflict where ambulances full of medics are murdered and buried and lied about, and surely an approaching unauthorized vessel determined to break the siege that they've promised to keep is going to be attacked. Like, this is a heartless, relentless Zionist state. So it's 30 souls on board, but surely they all know that that attack was inevitable. It's still kind of troubling to see, but it's not like a direct action type of thing that we would replicate over here, but it was a call to action issued. And, folks could try to draw attention to it there. I'm not sure the state of it now. That was probably about 2 hours ago. And yeah, I think, you could worry about those people for sure. 30 activists there. But that, again, is just like one of the many pressure points. People do anything. People are doing anything and everything possible to, get aid to Gaza or draw attention to the ruthlessness of the Zionist state or give hope to Palestinians, if nothing else, right? Like, so everyone's going at it from different angles. And what's that you pulled up? So small for me.
This is from the Gaza Freedom Flotilla. For those who want to help give pressure, people are asking for people to contact the phone number there at 356-2200 2495 and to see if you can motivate the Maltese government to assist, obviously, the Freedom Flotilla and the 30 people currently still, I'm assuming, trapped, at least at the time that we were notified about this.
Yeah, so folks can do with that what they will. I want to give stay on Palestine and the Palestinian Solidarity Movement. It has been about a year since we saw the beginnings of the encampments, the student encampments for Palestine right across Turtle Island. They started predominantly in the U.S., but quickly Canadian universities took up the call to up the ante. And here on Blueprints of Disruption, we visited the People's Circle for Palestine, who just celebrated their anniversary. It was transformative. We learned so much from them and from its experience, even by proxy. And that isn't even the most, no shade there, but that wasn't even one of the most notable campuses to respond to this call to put pressures on their institutions, whatever institutions you were in, to divest from the Israeli state. And so this is what the encampment's major demands have been. And we don't see the encampments right now, but their work hasn't stopped. Joe has a real slick video, actually, that the Montreal or McGill students in solidarity with Palestine have put together to just kind of recap you all as to what they've been up to.
Movement that is repressed will not be defeated, nor will it break, nor will it be killed. It will carry your minds, and carry your souls, and carry your blood, and carry your will, and show you the path of liberation.
Join us now! Join us now!
انت فينا من زمان، قلبي وروحي للقضية، شو لفينا بالبلاد، ما في زي فلسطين لبية، يافا وحيفا وريحة قدس وعكا، طبرية غزة نادي حرية يا فلسطين حرة حرة، فلسطين حرة حرة، يا فلسطين حرة حرة، فلسطين حرة حرة، يا فلسطين.
This is our love letter to Gaza and Palestine. The biggest thank you to our people. You have taught the world honor and dignity. You have freed us from the clutches of Zionism. And because of you, we are victorious. Because of you, hundreds of campuses from the belly of the beast have become liberated zones. They have become incubators of a revolution that will live on until total liberation.
شعبي بينادي وفيش صوت، بس احنا معاكم على الموت، يافا وحيفا وريحة قدس وعكا، طبرية غزة نادي حرية يا فلسطين.
And they really mean that last line, you know, we will never abandon Gaza. I hate being live sometimes. We are like 19, sometimes I lose count, months into the genocide, but those students, the student intifada has not let up, despite experiencing police violence, incredibly heartless university administrations, academic punishments, criminalization. And they have been relentless. That was McGill. McGill has been incredibly organized. They held the encampment for a very long time. I would call them one of the more militant encampments that Canada has. We are seeing what's happened with student encampments and movements in the U.S. We've done many talks about how the student experience here in Canada does mimic that to a large part, although it doesn't get the attention it needs. And I started writing my notes to give updates on some progress that folks were making in these student movements, both kind of in the Ottawa area. Carleton University managed to, one of the major demands of the encampments wasn't just to divest. First, they needed universities to disclose. It's hard to get them to divest if you don't know exactly where they are invested. And, you know, surprise, surprise, a lot of the universities just did not want to disclose where their investments were. That opens a whole other problem. If you can any way you can pull that one up, Joe, because Carleton didn't get them to disclose, but were leaked. They weren't just investing in genocide. Keep going, Joe. They are invested in the deportation business. So it's no wonder these universities did not want to tell students where they were invested. So I can only imagine a whole other set of students will seize on that opportunity, and other student groups be more motivated to find out where their tuition money is actually going. So, you know, Carleton counts this as a win, but it sure pissed them off. And they attempted to disrupt the April 29th Board of Governors meeting. This is usually who makes the decisions on all of these things, and they usually shut students out. There's like maybe 2 reps. Every university's different, but it's like such minimum student input. So they tried to disrupt it, and they were met with police violence, predictably. I'm not condoning it. It's just what the status quo is for these universities right now. And the University of Ottawa also had a success this week by getting their faculty to agree to the divestment demands. So
I
it's
want to
not
read
just.
this particular slide here, which is
Did I miss
from
something? Yeah.
So this is just the Carlton when they were doing the breakdown. They found 16 million being invested, 7 million in Fairfax, a major profiteer in the U.S. bail industry, enabling racialized incarceration. 2.7 million to Capgemini, builds data infrastructure for ICE deportation and detention operations. 4.5 million Thermo Fisher, supplied DNA kits used to separate thousands of children from families. And Thomson Reuters, 1.9 million, provides ICE with data systems to survey, target, and detain migrants. No shit, these guys were pissed when they found out, like, this is where their money and their student tuition is going to. Holy crap.
Yeah, and you know the administrators, especially since these movements have started, have taken a second look at these investments, and the response has been to just hide them rather than start to even make their paths easier. Just start to divest from some of this shit. Like, how do you defend yourself by banking off of things like weapons manufacturers as a university, or the awful things that Joe just listed off? The last Blueprints of Disruption episode that we dropped was a discussion with Tom Frazier on how public sector pensions are so deeply invested in what he calls like the web of awful. I mean, like pipelines, real estate investment trusts that displace entire neighborhoods, the military industrial complex, long-term care, privatized long-term care and retirement homes, like the most notorious bunch. So it's unreal that so much work has to go into telling our so-called like progressive institutions to not invest in death and exploitation. It's the ladder is long that we need to climb there, but the students are willing to do it. So this was just a small sampling. I'm probably missing some folks just from last week, right? The election week was kind of a blur, but know that on all these campuses, they have continued to keep up the pressure, and they are still going after their university administrators. They're still being suppressed, and so they still need your help, right? I've said this before, find a campus near you, see what you can do to help those students, or at least amplify the actions that they're doing, because they're risking a lot by doing all of this. Yeah, I think that might be it for our disruptive updates for this week. I'm just like scanning through. Oh, there's one that I don't want to share, but I'll just do it because it's on my list and I'm not sharing it next week. It's the city of Toronto is raising that fucking flag again today. They're putting up the Israeli flag, I think just halfway, because, apparently they're experiencing a genocide with some of the lines that I heard this week. Oh, groan. But Olivia Chow at least didn't make the photos. Oh, yeah, thank you, Joe. You did pull up something. I was missing something.
Yes, there was also this one.
Where was that? Yeah, okay, good. I like to give something like for people to go to or learn from in the disruptive updates, and this was one of them. Now, I don't know a lot about the democratic socialist groups. That's all I have to say about that, but I do love when folks are teaching tenants how to organize. And so these folks are supplying some workshops, and there seems to be 3 or 4 different chapters there tagged in the post. You'd have to go to their website, the Democratic Socialists of Canada website. But starting May 22nd, they're going to do tenant organizing training. And I cannot tell you how badly we need to keep organizing the tenant class as a means to push back against, folks like Carney and Ford and Olivia Chow. who thought I would ever have to kind of clump all of those 3 together. But tenant organizing, don't be daunted by it. There's a lot more out there than you think there is. And like, this is just the latest group to offer something like this. There's lots of groups in Ottawa that do this as well. The Ottawa Neighborhood Organizing Center, NOC, the Ottawa NOC. They're a great group if that's where you are. And the Vancouver Tenants Union, obviously in Vancouver, is one of Canada's largest, and they start chapters all the time. So you don't need to find out if there's one in your building. You just need to go find one. So that is my suggestion to you. Yeah, so we have a new government. Our fight remains the same, just like we told you it would. This, I tweeted that it was a majority government for the rich. That confused a lot of people, right? Because the partisans came out going, what are you talking about? But that is, in fact, who won. So the working class and social movements are, back to the drawing boards. Obviously, look at our premiers. They make sure we've got lots to work on. So I encourage folks to keep watching, keep your ear to Blueprints of Disruption. Again, we have a Substack where we're putting both our interviews with activists and organizers as well as written pieces to complement that, and the information we're trying to share about movements. Also has like a resource center. If you think we're missing something, pass it on. And I do appreciate folks who tune in. And, we didn't get any comments this week. It was a bit of a quiet week, but I do like to get the audience in on the discussion sometime. Maybe next time. Everyone a little bit burnt out from the election. Maybe that scared them off. The idea of having to talk about the election again. I'm like, I can't do it. So...
I think that'd be the. So I noticed we don't have the activist tip of the week, and I think that might be the tip of the week in regards to this one, which is this particular election has been a rather massive one. As I mentioned earlier on, and going around discussing with different groups, having been involved in different lives as we were discussing the entire election, especially in the last week, there was a growing sentiment of, I just want this over. There's so much, it's overwhelming. And even as we passed that line back on Monday in regards to finding out who this is done, obviously I had to wait another 24 hours for the specifics. It still doesn't really feel like it's done, as in like, that particular step is done. And we realize now that that was just a step, and there's still so much more that needs to be done with the US, with Ontario, with some crazy things we're going to see, because, we're great. We elect the person who might be dealing with this issue, but they're now might be adding to this issue or something else. It may be also, important for people to understand, like, it might be okay. This is going to be a lot. This might be overwhelming. It might be okay for you to take at least a minute for yourself so you do not get yourself overwhelmed and burnt out. There is still going to be a long fight, and there's nothing wrong with taking at least a minute, because if not, you're going to burn yourself out, and we can't lose people right now.
Are you talking to me, Joe? I feel like you're talking to me.
I feel I'm going to be talking to a lot of people. But, and again, no. if this feels like I'm talking to you, then maybe this is something you also take to heart in regards to at least, I'm not saying like, you to completely go away kind of thing. Like, take a sort of like an afternoon off sometimes. Just go outside.
Touch
play
grass.
with a dog. Play in the garden. Touch grass. Yes.
My tulips are this close to blooming, so I'll be able to give people a little bit of a timeline cleanse on social media soon. I start posting the flowers a little bit because, it is that time of year. But thank you for the advice, Joe, and for joining me for another Friday. We missed you last week, and
I apologize for that.
No. You were taking your own advice. You needed rest.
I did need rest.
Rest is revolutionary.
It is. It was. I wasn't feeling that great last week, unfortunately, but feeling much better now. And I was also ready for the election, which was also very important considering the election was the election. And there was so much going on that night as well as the next day.
There was. Right.
It was indeed.
Well, until next week, happy Friday, everybody. Go enjoy some sunshine if you have it. And just make sure after you rest, you keep on disrupting, right? That's what we're here for.
United,